Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called No Limo Service. Several years ago, in the late 90s and early 2000s, my dad traveled a lot for work, definitely road warrior status. Depending on the month, he could spend 15 to 20 plus days a month on the road, usually closer to 10 to 12 days a month. But the busier months happened regularly enough that he knew the pilots and flight attendants on his Monday and Tuesday flights out and Thursday and Friday flights home. But he's a family man. He'll sacrifice getting up early, traveling long days, doing whatever to get home every weekend. Go to my football games, holidays, anything you tell him you need him for, he's there. His boss understood and accepted his expenses as the cost of keeping a skilled employee productive and happy. My dad was never irresponsible with his expenses, but he's not going to inconvenience himself or us to save the company a buck. And if he can save time, he'll spend a few bucks to do so. This meant that he often took very early flights Monday morning to leave and very late flights Thursday to get home, go to the office late and wrap up paperwork. He checked around, and the best option was to have a private car service pick him up and take him to the airport and vice versa. Sometimes it was a town car, sometimes a limo. Then a new boss comes in. He sees that my dad is expensing a private car service and tells him he's being wasteful and irresponsible with company money. If he does it again, he won't approve it and Dad will have to pay out of pocket. Dad always pre-scheduled his car service. He tried to pre-schedule a cab, but they wouldn't do it in advance. He gets up at his normal time for his normal flight and calls a cab. The cabbie is late getting there and Dad misses his flight. Changes flights at the airport, but it's more expensive. Dad stops booking the earliest flight out, since he now doesn't trust the cab to show up on time. But he's not going to spend less time at home to save them money, so that means he has less time on the ground with clients. He has to take more trips to complete all his work. More flights, more hotels, more per diem, less work. We lived over an hour away. And he was going early in the morning before the traffic started up. Now he's going as traffic is starting up, which means it takes longer. Also, with the car service, he was just paying a flat fee, and gratuity was included automatically. The cabs are not a flat fee, and they are actually more expensive due to the distance and time, and there's no gratuity included. Dad had a pretty cushy gig at this point, but he was what you consider blue collar most of his life, and he's not about to stiff a cabbie just trying to feed his kids. So of course, he tips them. Since the tip is separate, it gets itemized on the expense report. The boss has to audit each itemization on the reports. He also stopped taking late flights on Thursday and working half a day on Friday in the office. Instead, he stays an extra night in a hotel, takes a more expensive midday flight home Friday, and his paperwork waits until after the weekend. Dad submits his expense report for that first month, and the new boss blows a gasket. Why did your travel expenses double when you spent less time on the road? Dad explains that since he can't reliably get a cab that early in the morning, he booked a mid-morning flight instead of a red-eye. Okay. Boss tells him that he was warned already about excessive transportation costs to the airport. Dad points out the receipts are all from a cab company, just like the boss man directed. The boss asks why there are so many itemizations. This is going to take more work. Dad points out that they are gratuity for the cabbies. After a couple of hours picking apart his expense report, the boss gives up and tells Dad to just go back to how he was doing it before. It was cheaper, more client visits were getting done, and post-trip reports were in before the weekends. The next story is called Break Compliance. I once worked in a nice bar/restaurant/hotel in the UK, and at the time was a smoker. Also, this establishment had a digital clock system with a credit-sized swipe card assigned to each employee. I was just a simple barman, pouring pints, running food and clearing up. My direct manager Stina was lovely and we got along very well, but above her was a bit of a balance of a manager, let's call her Margaret. Stina and I both enjoyed a cigarette break out the back in the car park, but Margaret didn't think we should smoke during work hours, unless on break. So to combat this, Margaret said we would have to clock in and out for each smoke break. Not a problem. Now, something we had worked out with the clock device was it did round it to the nearest 15 minutes. 15, 30, 45 or on the hour. So we figured if we clock out at 11:53 and then clock back in by 12:07, it would round both to 12 midday. We tested this, and sure enough, on our next payslip it showed we never took a break. So we kept doing this every time and were sure to tell everyone else earning minimum wage and working bad hours about this hack. I left a few months later and found out from a friend that Margaret left, and shortly after that the new manager changed the clocking system. But I thoroughly enjoyed this 14-minute paid cigarette breaks. The third story is called Need a Doctor's Note. This happened almost 20 years ago. I had been working away in a restaurant and had just finished a Saturday day shift. It wasn't common to get a Saturday night off, as it was our busiest night, and the boss was making me feel like I should be offering to do overtime, because they were being so kind to me. The last hour of my shift I started feeling crappy. By the time I got home I was really miserable. I was hoping I would feel better the next morning, but I still felt awful. I dutifully phoned in sick because I couldn't be around food until I had been symptom-free for 24 hours. My boss immediately assumed I was hungover and threatened to fire me for letting everyone down. I said fine, because I wasn't about to go to work. At the time, my flatmate was helping the same restaurant out because they were short a chef. He goes to work and is telling the boss how sick I am. He didn't know that I had been threatened, but it meant that the boss phoned me back and said if I could provide a sick note for the day, I wouldn't lose my job. At this time, my job was paying about 300 euros a week. A doctor's appointment and a sick note were going to set me back 100 euros. Fine, if you are going to assume the worst about me when I had never phoned in sick before, done. I got the grumpiest doctor, who was angry I had made an appointment for this when he had actual sick people who needed to see him. The doctor signed me off for a whole week. Instead of helping out to cover one of my shifts, they had to cover another 5 shifts, and I got a week off, paid. The next story is called Must Be on Time. My mom is a retired high school librarian and my dad is a retired elementary school principal. Dad's school was 5 miles further than mom's school, so they drove to work together during the school year. High school days began at 8:15, while elementary school days began at 8:30. Dad always wanted to be at work early, so he dropped mom off at 7. Mom, being who she was, would open the library to students at 7. And the students had an extra 30 minutes in the library. One day, Mom drove herself in, as Dad had an appointment that day. She arrived at 7:30 to see the principal waiting for her. The library was supposed to be open to students at 7:30, but Mom had been opening it at 7 for a few years now. Mom's contract also stipulated she had to work and be on site 8 hours every school day. But since she and Dad drove in together and she waited for him to pick her up, she essentially worked 9-hour days. 7 to 4. When she arrived that fateful day, the principal reprimanded her for being late. She tried to tell him she was on time, but he wouldn't have any of it. There were students waiting to be let into the library, and that was unacceptable. So Mom told him, "Do you want me here at 7? You know my contract says I'm not to exceed 8 hours a day. I'd like to get that in writing." She had a signed letter from him within an hour. From then on, Mom arrived at 7 and left at 3, 15 minutes before school let out. She was almost home before the last bell of the day rang. If anyone questioned her, she would pull the principal's letter out and show them. The principal never argued with her again. The last story is called No Price Guarantee. A few summers ago, I bought a portable air conditioner as it was super hot and there was a heat wave. Because of the heat wave, prices seemed higher than normal, but what can I do if I really want it? So I bought it. 10 days later, the exact same unit is 25% cheaper. They have a 30-day return policy as well. I go in with my receipt to customer service to try to get the lower price. They refused, saying they don't do price guarantees. Obviously, I don't want to go home and unhook my unit and haul it back. So I go buy the exact same unit and walk it to customer service and try to return it with my older receipt. I get 25% back, right? Except I don't. Customer service realized exactly what I was doing and called a manager who said they don't do price matches, and if I want to return it, I can only use my 3-minute-old receipt. I asked if he's sure, and he said yes. I said okay. I took the air conditioner to my vehicle and went for dinner nearby. I grabbed my multi-tool from my vehicle and cut the straps and opened the box, moved the remote and a few things around. Then I ripped a bit of plastic. If they still refuse, I'll return it at another location. I drove back to the store and walked back to customer service. Told them I want to return it. They noticed it's opened and they can't really prove it's the one I just bought anyways. got my 25% off, and they had to sell it as an open box unit. If they still refused, I'd still return it with the newer receipt and it'd still be an open box unit. Nothing big, but it probably cost them $100 to $150 or so. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and would like to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.